Welcome to FuturePMO.
Can everybody hear me? Wow, what an introduction and a welcome. Thank you so much. It's another year has gone by. I'm feeling a little bit older. So today, I just have 20 minutes with you just to talk a little bit about how PMOs have evolved over the years. So PMOs have been evolving for millions of years. No, they haven't. That's dinosaurs. And humans, depending on your point of view. PMO models have been evolving since around the 1970s. So we're going to be talking a little bit about the past and the future. Why? Because I'm a firm believer that you can't really know where you're going until you know where you've been. And things have happened in the industry that we need to consider. So thank you, Vince, for that introduction. As Vince said, I'm the Director of Consulting Services at Wellington, and I am a Fellow of the APM. I chair the PMO PMO Interest Network. I'm an Axelos P3M3 assessor, and I'm a psychologist to coach. So I've been at Wellington for a little while, and very proud to have built our PMO pathway and the academy that goes around it with my amazing training colleagues. So today we're going to explore the different PMO types, the models that have come from that, the deficits that we've found, so it's not all been sunshine and roses, which some of you may or may not agree with, the nature of PMO and how we can then use all of that to design the future. So as I mentioned, like the planet, but on a different scale, the PMO has evolved over years, so we're going to really be having a look at that today. If this works. Oh, it's just slow. That worked. So in the beginning, we had some what we call, let's call them simple types of PMO that were really stereotyping our PMO offices, whether they were project, program, portfolio management offices. Those of you who are not working in a PMO, have never worked in a PMO, it is the beating heart of project management in the sense of it wraps its arms around projects, making sure that we have all the right structure and processes and controls in place to enable our project community to succeed. And in the very beginning, we kind of started off as very much on this kind of level where lots of PMOs were about control. Why? Because the trigger for a PMO is quite often, I don't know where my money's going, or I don't know what my people are doing. So we need something to wrap our arms around it. So when we first started really looking at stereotype, what makes a PMO, we had these kind of four broad types. Some PMOs were supportive. Primarily their function was to view and report. So kind of like the weather station. It's kind of really looking at what's going on in projects and giving a viewpoint of it. There were also, some of you might know these as command and control PMOs, which their primary function was really to support and intervene when needed in those projects. Others were more directive, so really commissioning and directing where the projects were going, and so had more of a reporting line maybe with the project managers. And then we had what we called the blended PMO, which was the anomaly, because we started to see, I think, quite early on that we don't necessarily fit into one stereotype. Anuli today talked about the different types of dinosaurs and the characteristics, and that some have positive, well, they all have positives and they all have negatives. And blended kind of came along to give us that grey area. But after a while, the world became what we call VUCA, volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And with that, our PMOs started to become more aligned to the structure of our organization. So we can see here, again, 4 different types of PMOs that are more aligned to the reporting lines and where projects and people sit relative to each other. So we have this kind of centralized PMO providing consistency, tacit knowledge, visibility, control, improvement capacity, and capability development. So that kind of central hub, as we tend to call it, with kind of project managers just kind of sitting on the outside, managing projects, but having that tangible link into the PMO. The hub and spoke is becoming, or has become very popular, I would say, where we have kind of departmental project managers almost. So there's lots of departmental acumen. We know how to navigate our political landscape a little bit better. There's really visible delivery teams in the areas that they're impacting. But we're able to cross-skill and develop across teams. And in that model, we find a lot of change management champions because the people impacted are usually directly involved in the change. The distributed delivery is a little bit different in that it really focuses on subject matter expertise. So having that governance focus, being able to create toolkits very rapidly when we need to adapt, and having that partnership, an agreement and collaboration with the rest of the organization. And then we have this governance and delivery split where we have kind of a dotted line between the PMO and the project managers themselves. So again, we have lots of tacit knowledge in the business. We're able to navigate that political landscape, and it gives us visibility and control, as well as that centralized governance, and importantly, independence, which is something that a lot of the other PMOs start to struggle with over a period of time. We know when we're trying to deliver confidence in what we say, that this set of projects is doing well, part of that is, are you independent enough to be able to say that 100% confidently? So this is where we start to see that independence happening. Now, all of those are real positives, but there are deficits in this way of working. Firstly, these are all stereotypes. These are somebody else's idea of what your PMO or what a PMO is. That means that their perspective is just that. It's theirs, based on their own life experience, based on what they have and haven't been exposed to. So that means that if you blindly apply that model, that type, it might not fit your reality. Because your reality, even if it's in the same industry, is probably different because the culture of your organization is different. The way that we manage conflict, the way that we deal with challenges and opportunities is different. The people are different. People also assimilate very easily, not to move into the Star Trek world, but people very quickly assimilate into the world that they're currently in. So even if we know that it's not exactly the right thing, we will eventually just adapt into it, because that's how we humans have evolved. We then need to consider the level of influence that might actually play a part in our PMO. How much influence can we really have if we don't have that degree of visibility or independence? Knowledge. Most of you will probably know that we are supposed to gather knowledge and lessons from the projects that we run, whether they're successful or whether they fail. I imagine, like most organizations, most of you are really good at identifying the lessons, but not so great at learning them. Anybody agree? Yeah, lots of nods. So we need to understand what is the best model for me in terms of our project management practice. What does good look like? And Marissa and I, who developed our PMO courses, we always talk about best fit practice. It's taking that best practice and making it fit your reality. If we've had a bad experience within the organization, we will have a negative perception of the PMO. And we need that independence, but just the right level of independence. Not too much, not too little. It has to be a balance. And depending on which type or model you pick, it might not give you what you need in your reality. So the world has evolved, and now we talk about humans. At Wellington, we're very passionate about human first. Talk to the human before you talk to the role, and you'll get a lot further in your engagement and interactions. And within the PMO pathway that we have and we've developed, for a long time, we've talked about the nature of the PMO. So not the type, not the model that you want to pick, but what is the real nature of the work that you do as PMOs, or the work that your PMO that you're working alongside is doing. And we've been testing this theory since 2018, so quite a while since we developed our courses, and we utilize this for a lot of our assessments. And we found that actually all PMOs do some work that's tactical, focused on delivery, focused on metrics, focused on performance. All PMOs do some work that's governing standards and methods and giving people boundaries to work within. All PMOs do some work that's supportive, really focused on the people, capability development, making sure that the knowledge that we take from projects is being utilized elsewhere. And all PMOs do some work that's strategic. Now, some of you might think, I'm not very strategic. But actually, even if you're just looking at aligning your projects to your strategy, that's strategic work. If you're looking at demand versus capacity, that's strategic work. And the key here is that I've said in each of this, all PMOs do some of all of this work. And what's important is that we define and understand what our true nature is. Now, the reality is that the trigger for PMOs is still very similar. There's usually something that's happened that needs some arms wrapping around and needs some element of control. So on this slide, most PMOs start off on this side. And over time, PMOs want to be on this side. We want to be more strategic and more supportive. We don't want to be stuck in the tactical world. So how the PMO operates, if we understand this nature, is a key enabler to your project success in your organizations and your wider practice. Because once you understand that, and you understand where do we spend most of our time and where do we want to go, you can then start to build your model, the model that works for you. Because not all PMOs are ever going to be fully strategic. If you report into the CEO, that's a very different PMO than one that reports into the head of commercial. So we have to also be realistic. This model helps us to highlight how project professionals actually engage and experience an interaction with the PMO. And articulating this makes it really clear the boundaries and the lines that are drawn between our responsibilities and the responsibilities of the business. And it starts to give us that gap analysis. So overall, really creating more collaboration, more cohesive working. And the other reason why you should consider this model is that it's now best practice. So this has been incorporated into the PMO chapter of the APM's Body of Knowledge, the 8th edition, that's just been released a few months ago. So we know now that we've been talking about it for many years, and now it actually has been recognized as best practice, that we do need to move the needle in terms of how we anticipate, experience, engage our organizations if we're going to build or transform our PMOs. The gap I mentioned is really important, and I had permission from one of the PMO teams I've been working with recently to share this with you. It gives us a grown-up discussion, or at least the ability to have a grown-up discussion. Because what we're able to do is to say, where do you spend your time now on an average month? And we can see the little black diamonds are, this is where we are now, today. So we spend loads of time in tactical, which is that delivery stage. It's all of that mechanical stuff around gathering data, metrics, delivering insights. And in this example, they spend a decent chunk of time in that strategy box and also in that governing and less so in the supportive. But when we say to people, put yourself in a DeLorean time machine, fast forward 2 years, what would you like to see? And then we get a gap analysis. Now we start to see what the real aspiration is for that organization, and in particular, that PMO or that project management practice. And in this example, we want to reduce the time that we spend on tactical work. We want to reduce the amount of time we spend delivering and empowering people through more supportive and more governance to be able to help themselves. Straight away, this helps us to understand what the roadmap might start to look like. And again, you can download a PMO roadmap off the internet. Is it relevant to you? Is it actually going to help you? Probably not. Is it going to give you a fully functioning PMO in 3 months? It'll give you a PMO. Whether it's fully functioning is a different matter. So understanding where we are and then where we want to be are absolutely key for us to move forward. An efficient and respected PMO is more likely to facilitate more successful projects that will deliver to time, cost, and quality and give us those anticipated results. But as with all things project management, people deliver projects. So if a PMO is seen as unsupportive, hard to connect with, hard to access, then individuals will simply circumvent the process. And they'll utilize the PMO only when things go wrong. We call those submarine projects that happen under the radar until something horrible happens, and then they pop up to the surface because they then need some help. We don't want submarine projects. We want to be accessible, and we want to be approachable. So overall, if we are asking these kinds of questions, creating that more collaborative approach and culture where project management can thrive is just then going to be a natural progression. So some key questions here for you to consider in your world. How much time on average do we spend? Is that representative if we extrapolate it to a year? Where do we want to be? What are our success factors? Are we being realistic? It's lovely when I work with maturity assessments, and it's natural for people to say, you're at a 2, where would you like to be out of 5? Well, a 5, obviously a 5. We all want to win, right? So how quickly can I get to 5? But 5 might not be realistic. It might just not be in your future. And it's about acknowledging that that's okay. So it's not about having that perfect square in that PMO Natures diagram. So if you're still not convinced and you still maybe need to mull this over, then places to check out for further reading. The APM Body of Knowledge, as I said, that's in there. The Wellington PMO Practitioner course, and the IPMA PMO Practitioner Guide as well, which also starting to include this concept which is coming. And as is tradition, we always finish with Dr. Seuss. This is from one of my favorite Dr. Seuss stories, which is really talking about the path that we want to take. We all at some point come to a crossroads with our PMOs. It's now about understanding and deciding, are we going to go the stereotypical way? Or are we going to take a different path and understand the humans that we're impacting? Are we going to take a different path and really try to understand what's going to be successful for our organizations, rather than just keep doing the same old thing? So some practical tips for you to take away before I finish. Understanding the nature of your PMO is the key to unlocking your success. Developing a view of where you are and where you want to be is going to be really important for you to articulate value. And then you need to commit to it, and that's the hardest bit. When we get busy, this is the first thing that goes out the window, closely followed by lessons learned and a little bit of risk management as a general rule. So we need to make sure that we commit. We do what we say we're going to do when we say we're going to do it as PMOs. If we don't do that, we risk the project management practitioners that we have circumventing and continuing to work in this way that doesn't serve any of us. So take a different view. This session is being recorded, so you will be able to play this back. And if you have any questions, I'll be around for the rest of the day. Thank you for listening.